The hospital waiting room smelled like disinfectant and desperation, and Willa Bennett was pretty sure she was about to pass out from sheer exhaustion when the surgeon finally emerged through the double doors with good news about her grandmother's surgery. "She's stable, doctor," Rodriguez said, and Willa felt her knees buckle with relief. She grabbed the plastic chair beside her, steadying herself as tears of gratitude streamed down her face. Her grandmother was the only family she had left, and the thought of losing her had been unbearable. It was nearly midnight when Willa finally left the hospital. Her grandmother would need to stay for recovery, and the medical bills were already piling up in ways that made Willa's stomach churn. She worked as a pastry chef at a small bakery in downtown Portland, and while she loved her job, it barely covered rent and basic expenses. This medical emergency was going to wipe out what little savings she had managed to scrape together. She walked through the parking garage, her sneakers squeaking against the concrete, when she noticed a man sitting on the ground next to a sleek black car. He was dressed in an expensive suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and he had his head in his hands. Willa hesitated. It was late, she was tired, and getting involved with strangers in parking garages was generally a terrible idea. But something about the defeated slump of his shoulders made her pause. "Are you okay?" she asked, keeping a safe distance. He looked up, and even in the harsh fluorescent lighting, she could see he had striking features: dark hair, strong jaw, and eyes that looked absolutely devastated. "My father just died," he said, his voice rough. "I sat with him for hours, and then he was just gone." Willa's heart clenched. She had just come so close to that same loss, and the raw pain in this stranger's voice was something she understood intimately. "I'm so sorry," she said softly, moving closer. "I know that doesn't help, but I am." He rubbed his face with both hands. "I can't drive. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes trying to convince myself I'm okay to drive, but I'm not. Do you have someone you can call?" "I don't want to talk to anyone I know right now," he admitted. "They'll all want to discuss business continuity and board meetings and succession plans. I just want to go home." Willa made a decision that was probably stupid but felt right. "I can drive you. My car is terrible and probably not what you're used to, but it runs." He looked at her like she had spoken another language. "You would do that? For a stranger? You just lost your father." Nobody should be alone after that. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the wall of grief that let a hint of gratitude through. "Thank you, I'm Tristan, by the way, Tristan Shaw." "Willa Bennett." She held out her hand, and when he took it, his grip was warm and surprisingly steady despite everything. They walked to her beat-up Honda Civic, and she caught his slight hesitation before he folded himself into the passenger seat. The car was a decade old and had a concerning rattle, but it had character. Tristan gave her an address in the West Hills, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Portland. Of course he lived there. The suit should have been her first clue. They drove in silence for the first few minutes, the city lights blurring past the windows. Then Tristan spoke. "Why were you at the hospital?" "My grandmother had emergency surgery. She's going to be okay, though." Willa smiled despite her exhaustion. "I got lucky tonight." "I'm glad," he said, and she could hear that he meant it. "What did your father do?" Willa asked, then immediately worried she was prying. "Sorry, you don't have to answer that." "He built a company," Tristan said quietly. "Shaw Hospitality Group, hotels, resorts, restaurants. He started with one small hotel and turned it into an empire. And now I'm supposed to run it." Willa's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Shaw Hospitality Group was huge. She had seen their restaurants around the city, elegant places she could never afford to eat at. Which meant Tristan was not just wealthy, he was probably a millionaire, possibly more. "That's a lot of pressure," she said carefully. "I've been preparing for it my whole life, but I never wanted it to happen like this. I thought I'd have more time with him." His voice broke slightly on the last word. Without thinking, Willa reached over and squeezed his hand. It was a brief touch, just a moment of comfort, but when she pulled away, she could feel the warmth lingering on her palm. When they reached his house, calling it a house felt inadequate. It was a mansion, all modern lines and floor-to-ceiling windows that probably offered an incredible view during the day. "Thank you," Tristan said, not moving to get out of the car. "You didn't have to help me." "Yes, I did," Willa said simply. Nobody should be alone after losing someone they love. He pulled out his wallet, and Willa immediately shook her head. "I don't want your money. At least let me give you something for gas." "Tristan, no. I helped because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted payment." He stared at her for a long moment, like she was a puzzle he could not quite figure out. Then he pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "That's my personal number. If you ever need anything, call me, please." Willa took the card, her fingers brushing against his. "Take care of yourself, okay?" She watched him walk to his front door, his shoulders still heavy with grief, and then she drove home to her tiny apartment, wondering if she would ever see Tristan Shaw again. 3 days later, Willa was elbow-deep in kwasa dough when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar and she almost did not answer. "Is this Willa Bennett?" The voice was female, professional, efficient. "Yes, I'm calling on behalf of Tristan Shaw. He would like to invite you to dinner tomorrow evening at 7. Willa nearly dropped her phone into the dough. "I'm sorry, what? Mr. Shaw would like to thank you properly for your kindness." "Would you be available?" Willa's mind raced. She should probably say no. They were from completely different worlds, and this was weird, right? You did not usually get formal dinner invitations from billionaires you drove home from the hospital. But she thought about the broken look in his eyes, the way his hand had felt in hers, and heard herself saying yes. The restaurant was one of Shaw Hospitality Group's finest, a place Willa had only seen in magazines. She had agonized over what to wear, finally settling on a simple black dress that was nice enough without trying too hard. When she walked in, the hostess seemed to be expecting her and led her to a private table near the back. Tristan stood when he saw her, and Willa's breath caught. He looked different than he had in the parking garage. Put together, powerful, but when he smiled at her, she saw a hint of that same vulnerability from before. "You came," he said, sounding genuinely relieved. "You sent a formal invitation through an assistant. I felt like I was being summoned by royalty." He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Sorry, that's how I usually handle things. I should have just called you myself." They sat down, and a waiter immediately appeared with menus and wine recommendations. Willa felt distinctly out of her depth, but Tristan seemed to notice her discomfort. "The pasta here is incredible," he said. "And if you like seafood, the salmon is perfect." "How are you doing?" Willa asked, because pleasantries felt wrong when the last time she saw him, he had just lost his father. Tristan was quiet for a moment. "I'm managing. The funeral was yesterday." It was massive and formal, and I had to shake hands with hundreds of people who all wanted to tell me how great my father was, which he was, but it felt hollow somehow. "Grief is strange," Willa said softly. "When my parents died in a car accident 10 years ago, everyone kept trying to tell me how to feel, like there was a right way to be sad. You lost both your parents." Tristan's expression shifted to one of deep sympathy. "I was 17. My grandmother took me in and raised me. She's the only family I have left." Willa smiled, though it was tinged with old pain. "That's why I was at the hospital. She's everything to me." "How is she doing?" "Better. She's coming home in a few days." Willa did not mention the bills that were already making her consider picking up extra shifts anywhere that would have her. They ordered food, and the conversation flowed more easily than Willa had expected. Tristan asked about her work, and she found herself telling him about the bakery, about how she had fallen in love with pastry during home economics class and never looked back. "So you create beautiful things that make people happy," Tristan said. "That's a good way to spend a life." "What about you? Do you enjoy the hotel business?" Tristan considered this. "I enjoy building things, making experiences better for people. My father was all about expansion, but I'm more interested in quality. Making sure every property we run is somewhere people want to be, not just another luxury hotel." "That sounds like a good approach." "The board thinks I'm too soft," he admitted. They want aggressive expansion. They think I should be more like my father. But you are not your father, Willa said, and maybe that is not a bad thing. Tristan looked at her with something intense in his gaze. Most people would not say that to me. Most people probably tell you what they think you want to hear, and you don't. I barely know you, Willa said honestly. I have no reason to lie to make you feel better. He laughed, a real laugh that transformed his face. That's refreshing. The dinner stretched from 1 hour to 3. They talked about everything, from favorite books to terrible movies to the best places to get coffee in Portland. Willa kept waiting for the conversation to feel forced or awkward, but it never did. Tristan was smart and funny, and despite the obvious wealth and power, he seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say. When the evening finally ended, Tristan walked her to her car, which looked absurdly out of place in the restaurant's elegant parking area. I had a really good time, he said. Can I see you again? Willa's heart did a strange flip. Yes, I'd like that. Are you free this weekend? I have something I'd like to show you. Mysterious, Willa teased. Should I be worried? Only if you're afraid of heights. On Saturday, Tristan picked her up in a car that was somehow both understated and clearly expensive. He drove them out of the city, heading toward the coast, and Willa watched the landscape change from urban to rural to stunning. They ended up at a property overlooking the ocean, a beautiful old building that had clearly seen better days. This was my father's first hotel, Tristan explained as they walked through the empty lobby. He bought it 40 years ago when it was falling apart and turned it into something special. It's been closed for renovations for the past year. The building was a mix of old charm and new construction. Workers had clearly been updating everything, but they had preserved the original character. It's beautiful, Willa said, running her hand along the worn wooden check-in desk. I'm reopening it next month, Tristan said. This place was my father's heart and I want to honor that, but I also want to make it my own. He showed her through the property, pointing out the changes they were making, the features they were preserving. His passion for the project was evident in every word, and Willa found herself getting caught up in his enthusiasm. They ended up on the back terrace, overlooking the ocean. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Why did you bring me here? Willa asked. Tristan was quiet for a moment, his hands resting on the terrace railing. Because you are the first person in my life who seems to see me as just a person, not as my father's son or the CEO of a company. And I wanted to share something real with you. Willa felt her chest tighten. Tristan, I am just a baker from a tiny apartment. Our lives are completely different. Does that matter? It might, she said honestly. Your world is champagne and business deals and society events. Mine is early morning shifts and struggling to pay medical bills. Tristan turned to face her fully. What if I don't care about any of that? You should care, Willa insisted. Because whatever this is between us, it feels too good to be true, and I have learned that things that seem too good to be true usually are. This doesn't happen to people like me, she said, her voice breaking slightly. Regular people don't meet billionaires and fall into fairy tales. Tristan stepped closer, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. Maybe it happened because you deserved it. Did you ever think of that? That's a nice thought, but life doesn't work that way. Why not? He reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Willa, from the moment you stopped to help a stranger in a parking garage, you have been nothing but kind and honest and real. If anyone deserves good things, it's you. You barely know me, she whispered. Then let me know you better. Let me take you to dinner again. Let me call you at the end of a long day. Let me see where this goes. Willa wanted to say no. The logical part of her brain was screaming that this was a mistake, that she was setting herself up for heartbreak. But when she looked at Tristan, she saw the same hope and fear reflected in his expression that she felt in her own heart. Okay, she said softly. Let's see where this goes. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious. And Willa let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe fairy tales could happen to people like her after all. The next few weeks were a blur of stolen moments and late-night phone calls. Tristan's schedule was insane, filled with board meetings and property visits, and the million responsibilities of running a massive company. But he made time for Willa, carving out hours in his day to see her, even if it was just for coffee. Willa continued working at the bakery, though her coworkers had started to notice the change in her. She smiled more, checked her phone constantly, and occasionally drifted off into daydreams while mixing batter. "Who is he?" her boss, Margaret, finally asked one morning. Willa blushed. "What makes you think there's a he?" "Honey, I've been married for 30 years. I know what falling in love looks like, falling in love. Was that what this was?" Willa was afraid to examine her feelings too closely, terrified that if she acknowledged how much Tristan was starting to mean to her, it would all fall apart. Tristan invited her to the reopening of the Coastal Hotel, and Willa spent a ridiculous amount of money on a dress she could not afford. The event was elegant and crowded with people who clearly lived in Tristan's world. Business partners, socialites, and reporters all mingled in the renovated lobby, drinking champagne and admiring the space. Willa felt completely out of place until Tristan found her. He looked incredible in a tailored suit, every inch the powerful CEO, but when he saw her, his whole face lit up. "You look stunning," he said, taking her hand. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He kept her close throughout the evening, introducing her to people as simply Willa, without explanation or label. Some people looked curious, others dismissive, but Tristan did not seem to care about their reactions. His attention was entirely on her. Halfway through the evening, he pulled her aside into a quiet hallway. "Is this too much?" he asked. "I know this isn't your scene." "It's intimidating," Willa admitted, "but I'm okay. Some of these people can be judgmental. If anyone makes you uncomfortable, tell me." "Why would they judge me?" Tristan hesitated. "Because you are not from their world, and some of them will think that matters. Does it matter to you? Not even a little bit." He cupped her face in his hands. "Willa, you are the best thing that has happened to me in a very long time. Maybe ever. I don't care what anyone else thinks." Willa kissed him, right there in the hallway, and felt him smile against her lips. The trouble started the next week. Willa was at work when her phone started buzzing with notifications. She ignored them at first, too focused on getting a wedding cake finished, but during her break, she finally checked. Her stomach dropped. Someone had taken photos of her and Tristan at the hotel reopening, and they were now splashed across social media and several gossip websites. The headlines were brutal. "Shaw heirs mystery woman. Who is she? Billionaire CEO slumming it with Baker. Gold digger alert. Tristan Shaw's new girlfriend." The comments were worse. People she had never met were dissecting her appearance, her background, her motives. They called her a social climber, a gold digger, and worse. Some were even crueler, suggesting she was not attractive enough or sophisticated enough for someone like Tristan. Willa felt sick. She had known their different backgrounds might cause problems, but seeing it laid out so viciously online was crushing. Her phone rang, and Tristan's name flashed on the screen. "Don't read it," he said immediately when she answered. "Willa, please tell me you haven't been reading that garbage." "Too late. I'm so sorry. I should have warned you this might happen. I should have protected you better." "How?" Willa asked, her voice hollow. "How do you protect someone from strangers deciding they know everything about them? Come to my place tonight. Please let me see you." Willa agreed, though part of her wanted to hide in her apartment forever. When she arrived at Tristan's house that evening, he pulled her into his arms immediately. "I'm handling it," he said. "My PR team is working on getting the worst of it taken down, and I'm making it clear to everyone that you are off limits." "That will just make it worse," Willa said. "Tristan, maybe we should take a break. Let things cool down." He pulled back to look at her, his expression fierce. "No. Absolutely not. I'm not letting cruel people on the internet dictate my life or who I care about. This is your reputation, your company. I don't care." His voice was firm, unyielding. "Willa, I'm falling in love with you." Some nasty comments from people who don't know you aren't going to change that. Willa's breath caught. "You're falling in love with me?" "Yes," he said simply. "I know it's fast and I know this situation is complicated, but yes, I'm falling in love with you." Tears pricked Willa's eyes. "I'm falling in love with you too, and that's what makes this so scary. I don't want to be the reason your life gets harder." "You make my life better," Tristan insisted. "In every way, and I'm not giving that up because some people are small-minded and mean." They spent the evening together, talking through everything. Tristan was adamant that they would face this together, and slowly, Willa started to believe him. The media attention did die down eventually, helped by a carefully worded statement from Shaw Hospitality Group asking for privacy and respect. But the experience had shaken Willa, making her more aware than ever of the scrutiny that came with being involved with someone like Tristan. 2 months into their relationship, Willa's grandmother met Tristan for the first time. Willa Bennett was sharp as ever despite her recent health scare, and she studied Tristan with an intensity that made even him look nervous. They had dinner at Willa's apartment, which felt absurdly small with Tristan's tall frame filling the space. Willa cooked, refusing Tristan's offer to have the meal catered, and Willa watched the way they moved around each other in the tiny kitchen. "So you run hotels," Willa said during dinner. "Yes, madam, hotels, resorts, and restaurants." "And you're serious about my granddaughter, Grandma?" Willa protested, mortified. "It's a fair question," Tristan said calmly. He looked directly at Willa. "I'm very serious about Willa. She is the most genuine, kind, talented person I have ever met, and I consider myself extremely lucky that she's giving me a chance." Willa nodded slowly. "Willa's been hurt before, not by men necessarily, but by life. She's had to be strong for a long time." "I know," Tristan said softly. "And I'm not trying to take that strength away. I just want to be someone she can lean on when she needs to." After dinner, while Willa was in the kitchen getting dessert, Willa pulled Tristan aside. "That girl is everything to me," Willa said quietly. "She gave up a lot to take care of me when I got sick, never complained, never made me feel like a burden." "She mentioned the medical bills are piling up," Tristan said carefully. "I'd like to help with that." "She won't let you," Willa said. "She's too proud." "I'm figuring that out." Tristan smiled slightly. "But I'm persistent. You'll need to be. Willa doesn't trust easily, and she'll fight you on accepting help." "I don't want to steamroll her," Tristan said, "but I also can't just stand by when I have the resources to make things easier." Willa studied him for a long moment. "You really do care about her?" "I love her," Tristan said simply. It was the first time he had said it so baldly, without qualifiers or hesitation. "Then prove it by respecting her independence even when it frustrates you." When Willa came back with pie, she found her grandmother and Tristan talking easily, and the tension in her shoulders eased. Having the two most important people in her life get along felt significant. After Willa went to bed, Tristan helped Willa clean up. "Your grandmother is formidable," he said. "She liked you. Trust me, if she didn't, you would know." Tristan caught her around the waist, pulling her close. "I meant what I said to her. I love you, Willa." Willa's heart soared. "I love you too. Even though you're stubborn and you live in a ridiculous house and you probably have more money than some small countries. Those are my best qualities," he teased. She kissed him, pouring every ounce of love and hope and fear into it. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Stay tonight," Willa said. "I know this apartment is tiny compared to what you're used to, but stay. There's nowhere else I'd rather be." They fell asleep tangled together in Willa's small bed, and for the first time in a long time, Willa let herself believe that this could really work. The proposal came 4 months later, though not in the way Willa expected. She and Tristan had spent the day at the coast, walking along the beach near the hotel that had brought them closer together. The property was thriving now, fully reopened and getting rave reviews. They were sitting on the terrace, watching the sunset, when Tristan turned to her with an expression she could not quite read. "I need to tell you something," he said. Willa's stomach tightened. Those words never led anywhere good. "Okay, the board has been pressuring me to settle down." They think a CEO should be married, stable, and present a certain image. That's archaic, Willa said, her defenses immediately up. Your personal life shouldn't matter to your job performance. I agree. Which is why I told them that if they can't accept me as I am, they can find a new CEO. Willa stared at him. Tristan, you can't do that. That company is your legacy. You are my future, he said firmly, and I'm not letting a bunch of old men in suits dictate who I love or how I live my life. He took her hand, but that conversation made me realize something. I don't want to marry you because the board thinks I should. I want to marry you because I can't imagine my life without you in it. He pulled out a ring box and Willa's breath stopped. This is not about image or pressure or expectations, Tristan said. This is about the fact that you are my favorite person in the world. You make me laugh, you call me out when I'm being difficult, and you see me as just Tristan, not the CEO or the heir or any of the labels people put on me. Willa Bennett, will you marry me? Tears were streaming down Willa's face. This really doesn't happen to people like me. Stop saying that, Tristan said, his own voice thick with emotion. You keep acting like you don't deserve good things, like you're not worthy of being loved. But Willa, you are everything, and this is happening because you deserve it. Because you are kind and strong and incredible, and I'm the lucky one here. Yes, Willa sobbed. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple, elegant diamond that caught the sunset light. Then he kissed her, and Willa tasted salt from both their tears. I love you so much, she whispered against his lips. I love you too, always. The wedding was 6 months later, a beautiful ceremony at the coastal hotel that had become special to both of them. Willa wore a simple white dress that made her feel like a princess, and Tristan looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Eleanor was there, healthy and beaming, walked Willa down the aisle. The guest list was small, mostly close friends and family, though a few of Tristan's business associates attended. Willa had been nervous about that, but Tristan had been clear that anyone who could not treat his bride with respect was not welcome. When they exchanged vows, Willa's voice was steady. I promise to love you through every challenge, to be your partner in all things, and to never let you forget that you are more than your last name or your company. You are Tristan, the man who stopped in a parking garage and let a stranger see his grief. That's the man I'm marrying, and I'm so grateful he chose me. Tristan's vows were equally heartfelt. I promise to honor your strength, to support your dreams, and to remind you every day that you deserve every happiness. You saved me, Willa, in more ways than you know. I love you, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving it. The reception was joyful and intimate. They danced under string lights on the terrace, the ocean providing a constant soundtrack. Margaret from the bakery cried through the entire ceremony and cornered Tristan afterward. You better take care of her, Margaret said fiercely. I plan to, Tristan assured her. She's special, don't you forget it. Never. Late in the evening, Willa and Tristan snuck away from the party, walking down to the beach. The sand was cool under their feet and the moon painted everything silver. How are you feeling, Mrs. Shaw? Tristan asked. Willa tested the name in her mind. She had kept her last name professionally but taken his legally, a compromise that felt right. Happy, terrified, grateful. That's a lot of feelings. It's been a big day. She leaned into his side and his arm came around her immediately. A year ago, I never would have believed this was possible. Do you believe it now? I'm getting there, she admitted. You make it easy to believe in good things. They stood there for a long time, just holding each other and listening to the waves. Finally, Tristan spoke again. I have a wedding present for you. We said no gifts. This isn't that kind of gift. He pulled out an envelope. Your grandmother's medical bills have been paid off, all of them. Willa froze. Tristan, no, we talked about this. I know you wanted to handle it yourself, he said quickly. But Willa, you are my wife now. Your burdens are mine and mine are yours. Let me do this, please. Willa wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could manage on her own, but the relief that flooded through her was undeniable. Those bills had been a constant weight on her shoulders, a source of stress that never fully went away. Thank you, she whispered, tears threatening again. I hate that I needed help, but thank you. You don't have to do everything alone anymore, Tristan said gently. That's what marriage means. We're a team now. A team, Willa repeated, testing the word. It felt good. It felt right. They walked back to the hotel hand in hand, ready to rejoin their guests and celebrate the beginning of their life together. 3 years later, Willa stood in the kitchen of their home, a beautiful house they had chosen together that was large without being ostentatious, mixing batter for a cake. She had left the bakery a year ago to open her own pastry shop, a dream Tristan had supported enthusiastically. The shop was thriving, known for its incredible desserts and warm atmosphere. Tristan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "Smells good," he said. "It's for the Johnsons' anniversary party tomorrow." His hands moved to her stomach, which was just starting to show the slight swell of early pregnancy. "How are you feeling?" "Nauseous, tired, and ridiculously happy," Willa said, turning in his arms to face him. "How was work?" "Long, but I'm home now." He kissed her forehead. "How's our little one?" "According to the doctor, perfectly healthy, and very active for being so small." They had found out about the pregnancy 2 months ago and both had been overjoyed. Eleanor was already planning to spoil her great-grandchild rotten, and Tristan had been reading every parenting book he could find. "I was thinking," Tristan said, "maybe we could take some time off after the baby comes, just the 3 of us, somewhere quiet. You take extended time off." Willa teased. "Did hell freeze over?" "I'm learning to delegate," he said with mock dignity. "And my family is more important than any business deal." Willa kissed him long and sweet. I love you too, both of you." That night, lying in bed with Tristan's hand resting protectively on her stomach, Willa thought about how much her life had changed. She had gone from barely making ends meet to building a successful business, from being alone to having a partner who loved her unconditionally. From thinking fairy tales didn't happen to people like her to living one. "What are you thinking about?" Tristan asked sleepily. "About that night in the hospital parking garage," Willa said. "About how I almost didn't stop to help you, but you did." "But I did," she agreed. "And it changed everything." "Best decision either of us ever made," Tristan murmured, pulling her closer. Willa smiled in the darkness. She had spent so long believing that good things happened to other people, that luck and love were for those who somehow deserved it more. But Tristan had been right that day on the terrace. It had happened because she deserved it. They both did. And as she drifted off to sleep, surrounded by love and possibility, Willa finally believed it. 5 months later, Willa gave birth to a healthy baby girl they named Emma Rose Shaw. Tristan cried when he held her for the first time, and Willa captured the moment on her phone. This powerful CEO reduced to tears by 7 pounds of baby. Eleanor was the first visitor, and she held her great-granddaughter with practiced ease. "She's perfect," Eleanor declared. "Looks just like her mama." The early days of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful. Tristan took a month off work, and they figured out this new phase of life together. He was surprisingly good with diaper changes and midnight feedings, and Willa fell even more in love with him watching him be a father. When Emma was 3 months old, they took her to the Coastal Hotel for the first time. It had become tradition to visit several times a year, and bringing their daughter felt significant. They stood on the terrace, the same place Tristan had proposed, watching the sunset. Emma was asleep in Tristan's arms, tiny and peaceful. "You ever think about that first night?" Willa asked. "When I drove you home, all the time," Tristan said. "I was at my lowest point and you appeared like some kind of miracle." "I'm not a miracle, I'm just a person who stopped to help." "You're my miracle," Tristan insisted. He shifted Emma carefully and reached for Willa's hand. "You, this baby, this life we've built, it's more than I ever dreamed possible." Willa squeezed his hand. "I used to think I had to prove I deserved good things, that I had to earn happiness. And now I understand that love isn't about deserving, it's about choosing each other every day. And I choose you, Tristan Shaw, today and every day." He kissed her then, careful not to wake the baby, and Willa felt complete. Her journey from that exhausted woman in a hospital parking garage to this moment had been unexpected and sometimes scary, but it had led her exactly where she needed to be. "Thank you," Tristan whispered against her lips. "For what?" "For stopping that night. For taking a chance on me. For building this beautiful life with me. Thank you for showing me that fairy tales can be real," Willa replied. They stood there as the sun disappeared below the horizon, a family bound by love and choice and the simple act of kindness that had started it all. And Willa knew, with absolute certainty, that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Years from now, she would tell Emma this story. She would explain how sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected moments, from choosing compassion even when you are exhausted, from taking chances on people who seem too different from you. She would tell her daughter that love isn't about perfect circumstances or deserving. It's about seeing someone at their most vulnerable and choosing to stay. But for now, in this moment, Willa simply held her husband's hand and watched the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky, grateful for every twist of fate that had led her to this perfect, impossible, wonderful life.